The top 10 seem to come from another planet. The top 100 are unapproachable, and that after that is when you start reaching people जिनको आप समझ सकते हो कि अच्छा इसने मेहनत की होगी तो चला गया होगा. Top 10 में किस तरह से बंदे आते हैं? IIM and IIT are very similar in many aspects, in the sense that both are full of engineers or wannabe engineers. There are very few women. There are just 3 of you, I think, over here, so the gender ratio is awful. The competition is a lot more intense at IIM. It has proved to be that India is a very overserviced market as far as investment research is concerned. I believe Reliance has something like 100, 200 analysts covering it. There is really no space to make a difference, is my view. Or if you can make a difference, it is the edge is very small. On the other hand, good people doing investment research or staying in BPO is a lot better place to be. So I very consciously chose to continue with my career in the services export business rather than build up in the finance area, because I said going back to Bombay and becoming an equity research over there, one of the 200 people who's covering Reliance, one of the 500 who's covering Unilever, isn't really going to be a very good idea.
You must be thinking another pre-roll? Wait, let me just skip it. With Altuni, there are some boring things which you can avoid, like the long wait for promotions or increments, or the numerous interviews before you land your dream job. At Altuni, we make sure that you're future ready and skilled to be in the top 0.5% club. Click on the link in the description now.
Bhuwan is a IIT, IIM graduate. He's a writer of a book. He's supposed to be a fantastic theatre actor. So at some point of time, if you think he should perform, maybe we should ask him to do that. He also does book readings as well. Apart from the fact that he writes books, he also has some very, very deeply researched opinions about the political system of the country. And I had to bring that up. When you're coming to the capital city of the country, kahin na kahin wo cheez to aani chahiye bahar. Please, a big round of applause for Bhuwan, guys. Bhuwan, you've obviously, have a lot of brands on your CV. IIT, IIM, Goldman Sachs. I'm sure there are other brands that I don't even know of. But let's talk about your career story. So tell us about your early days and why did you decide to go to IIT? Was it very fashionable back then as well? How many people knew about it? And tell us about your IIT days.
Sure. So as I said, पढ़ा मैं पूरे इंडिया में अलग-अलग cities में, अलग-अलग states में. I finally passed my 12th from a small army school in Solan in Himachal Pradesh. If you guys know that place, it's a very beautiful place. It's the place where Old Monk is manufactured. It used to be manufactured in India. I think right now that's changed to Ghaziabad. So I passed out there. At that time, classic this thing, you're a middle class boy, what do you do? So your dad tells you what to do, and he was keen ki, why don't you take up IIT, बड़ी अच्छी जगह है, यहाँ पे चले जाओ. So his view was कि तुम IIT कर लो, उसके बाद IIS कर लेना, and everything is set. तो
पर एक क्वेश्चन है, आप आर्मी क्यों नहीं ज्वाइन किया आपने?
मेरे को I was never the sort who could take orders. I realized that very early. I was always like क्यों करूँ? So that is a fatal attitude in the army. You say that कि हाँ सर वो तो सही है, क्यों करूँ? तो आप फंस जाओगे. And luckily for me, I realized that I have quite a few friends in the army from school, and they're doing quite well.
But did you take orders from your dad because he's also an army man?
To an extent. So मैं IIT चला गया, मैं IIS नहीं है. So I went into the IIT. वहाँ पे 4 साल was great fun. I studied at IIT Delhi with some of the most brilliant minds I know. Usually IIT में there are the when you look at the JEE, the top 10 seem to come from another planet. The top 100 are unapproachable, and that after that is when you start reaching people जिनको आप समझ सकते हो कि अच्छा इसने मेहनत की होगी तो चला गया होगा. Top 10 में किस तरह से बंदे आते हैं, वो आपके कॉम्प्रिहेंशन से बाहर होता है. सो आई मेट पीपल जो अजीब से थियोरम्स प्रूव कर देते थे, एग्जाम्स में चले जाते थे तो पाइथागोरस निकालने का नया तरीका निकाल देते थे, एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. सो यू विल फाइंड दोज सॉर्ट ऑफ माइंड्स ऑल्सो. इंटरेस्टिंगली ऑल ऑफ देम नाउ वर्क फॉर गूगल और अमेजॉन. I spent 4 years over there and I hadn't a very good idea कि मैं क्या करना चाहता हूँ, except मैं IS में नहीं जाना चाहता था. Because again, you know, I did not have a very strong bent of mind towards government service. So IS नहीं लिया. क्या करोगे आप, वही कर सकते हो, you know. या तो उस टाइम पे you know, these companies used to be big hirers in fee, and TCS used to be really big hires in IITs. So one choice was to go to these companies. The other was to go to IIM, and most of us chose both. Which is कि कैट दे दो, अगर हो गए तो IIM चले जाएंगे, 2 साल और ऐश करेंगे, अगर नहीं हुए तो इन्फी चले जाएंगे और थोड़ी ऐश करेंगे.
I think 20 साल बाद I think the story is not too dissimilar.
Yes. Except that the number of companies has gone. I don't think
Absolutely. There are more options.
Yes. So Infi TCS don't go to IIT, अब Microsoft करने लगा. ठीक है, करो. क्या कह सकते. So you know, I decided placement में मैंने वो Infi TCS वगैरह apply किया और I applied for the CAT. CAT was one of those places where one of those life-changing events occurred out of the blue. So what happened was I got into the CAT exam and they gave us the papers. They said start. हम लोगों ने खोला, पढ़ना शुरू कर दिया. I read the first page, I read the second page. Suddenly a teacher buzzed in. No, you cannot start. You have to stop. So everybody stopped. I didn't. I just kept looking at the. You don't need to make notes, right? You just look. अच्छा, पहले का आंसर ये है, दूसरे का ये है, तीसरे का ये, पांचवे का ये है, छठे का ये. So by the time they said कि start CAT, I was already 10 questions ahead. And that, you know, you guys are preparing for CAT, that is enough of an edge. That's more than enough of an edge to qualify the CAT. It's like एक question पे जान जाती है वहाँ पे. So मैं तो 10 question की edge ले लिया. I got a call from every one of the IIMs. I finally joined IIM Ahmedabad. तब भी मैंने सोचा था, you know, there used to be this very clear theory कि IIM Cal चले जाओ, the competition is not that tough, so you'll get better placement prospects. या IIM Ahmedabad चले जाओ, where the competition is very tough, so you will meet a lot of people. We just weighed the options, decided nothing in particular, और जो सब जहाँ जा रहे थे वहाँ चले गए. After that, you know, I passed out of IIM, took up a job in Singapore. Didn't do particularly great at it. It was in, you know, with a company called Deloitte, right at the time of the .com bust. So imagine this: you do IIT, you do IIM, you go to Singapore. You're raring to go कि मैं दुनिया को दिखाऊंगा कि मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ. And you spend your first 12 months sitting on the bench because जो आपका .com का era है, that has ended. IT consulting में जो काम है वो सब चले गए हैं. ये HP, Agilent वगैरह की जो consulting है वो चली गई है. And you're basically sitting at office. So I did that for about a year. Came back to India. Joined a startup called eValueserve. Worked with them.
तो आपने IIM Ahmedabad में क्या किया? I know आपने बोला you had a very good time in your IIT Delhi days. But how is IIT different from IIM for you? And I'm sure everybody's answer is different. Different eras, things change. But how was the IIM experience? I think you had what, 120 people in your batch?
Yeah, somewhere around that.
अभी I think कुछ 350-400 लोग होते हैं. 500 लोग हो जाते हैं in some IIMs. हाँ. तो what was that experience like? आपका dorm का nickname क्या था?
Milka. They had a sense of humor. So they asked me what I did. I said I liked running before it was fashionable. So मेरा नाम मिल्खा रख दिया था. So IIM and IIT are very similar in many aspects, in the sense that both are full of engineers or wannabe engineers. There are very few women. There are just 3 of you, I think, over here. So the gender ratio is awful. The competition is a lot more intense at IIMs. People are a lot more serious about their careers. IITs tend to be कि मुझे नहीं पता क्या होता है. At IIM, you better know what you want to do and what are the courses you want to take. IIM also, a lot more people are very aware of what is the sort of career they want. You know, in our times, it used to be a few people who wanted to get into companies like Levers and PNG, और वो उनकी life का ambition था, and they succeeded at it. There were others who wanted to get into, you know, BCG or a McKinsey or consulting. That was also there. So a lot more people were serious. Unlike IIT, where we were like placement होगी फिर देखेंगे क्या होता है. A lot more people were a lot clearer about their careers, and the competition was a lot more intense. IIM, everybody is into extracurriculars. People are really building their CVs like IIT, where people are, except for the folks who want to go into the US and want to write their essays, और कोई ज़्यादा इतना सोचता नहीं है कि क्या करेगा. But IIM में, you know, people are very consciously building the CV. So I did some extracurriculars at IIM. I generally had a good time, and I appreciated the fact that I learned a lot more Especially the things which they taught me around accounting, around finance, has stayed with me, for a long time. It has taught me a lot about business, and it still comes in.
So, but any other कुछ like cultural committee या ऐसा कुछ did you do?
I was part of some of the festival organizing committees. I was generally part of some of the dramatics. There was a big play which we did over there. There's a play called Court Martial. I played the lead actor over there. So उस तरह के काम.
मतलब आपका court martial हुआ?
I was the judge in the Court Martial. So it's a very famous play. I don't know how many of you would have seen a performance. It's a very famous play. Court Martial करके है. So I played Colonel Singh करके कुछ होता था, which was like हाँ कर लूँगा.
You channelized all your army
Yeah.
this into it.
True.
So आपका internship कहाँ था? Summer internship.
Summer internship was at PNG. I went to PNG Finance. Somehow it was one of the things which which was definitely there, that I wanted to go into finance, but my skills seemed to be more towards marketing and towards business consultancy.
So where was the internship? In Bombay or in
Bombay. So I went off to Bombay. I had stayed there for some time in my student days, so it was not a completely unknown city. But spent 3 months at Bombay and decided I don't want to go there again ever. So I had an interesting sort of situation where I wanted to be a finance person. I did not want to go to Bombay, and I was getting chosen for consulting and marketing. So I really didn't know where to go. I just let it be, and jaisa chal raha hai chalne do. And that's how you proceeded. I'm sure.
But what's wrong with the city for you?
Pretty soon I realized that the corporate world was a very serious place. People start at 8-9 in the morning, and typically working hours, even in a firm like PNG, would be 12 to 14 hours to begin with. In places in finance like Goldman Sachs and so on, you have very, very long work hours. 15 hours, 16 hours is the sort of norm over there, especially early in your career. So did that, and came back, started working in Singapore, and that's really how it played out. It is only then that I started.
Singapore was which company?
Deloitte.
Okay.
Deloitte Consulting. So it was more of a technology consulting firm. So it's only after I came back from there that I seriously started thinking, which is the industry I want to work in, which is the area I want to work in. And at that time, 2 areas presented themselves. One was equity research and investment research, which is an area I liked. And the second was the space for business process offshoring, as you call it, which is the BPO industry, which at that time, I'm talking about early 2000s, was an up and coming industry. It's a lot more mature now. Over that time, it was an up and coming industry. So I worked in sort of these 2 areas, and that's where I built my career over a period of time. So whether at Goldman, whether at eValueserve, whether at Infosys, or now at Sun Life, this is the industry I've worked in. So if you really look at where my career is, it is in the export of services, primarily related to the research on investment securities.
Got it. So you spent how long there?
I spent almost 5 years at eValueserve. Then I got an opportunity to work on structuring large deals with Infosys in Bangalore. I moved into Bangalore around 2005-06. I think that was the period I moved in. And I did not know it then, but it was the second coming of the .com. If you look at it, all the big sort of unicorns you have, like Flipkart, Snapdeal, some of the other first wave of e-commerce, some of the others which have come in, actually have their genesis at that period. A whole lot of engineers who went into places like Infy and TCS and Amazon got bored of their life and decided to do something else. And about 20-25 of them succeeded in becoming billionaires. That's really the story of Bangalore.
And you moved to Bangalore in 2002?
2005.
2005. So at that point of time, not a lot of people were actively choosing Bangalore as a location. I mean, at least Bangalore being the startup capital of India started becoming more mainstream around early 2010, 2012. Not उसके पहले हो रहा था, पर at least mainstream में पता नहीं था.
हाँ, so उसके पहले हो रहा था, but इतना visible नहीं था. Underneath, you could see that there was a lot of churn. I had the good fortune of meeting quite a few of these founders. The person who started Mu Sigma, some billionaires. I actually had the good fortune of actually meeting them in person. Some of them actually interviewed me. So उनसे मिलना, उनसे बात करना. अब retrospect में लगता है कि उस time पे वो manager था, वो उसके पास 10,000 करोड़ रुपए हैं. So he must have been good. कुछ तो रहा होगा शायद मैं सीखना भूल गया.
So, Bhuwan, one question I have about your career, given that you were you have been in finance for almost 20 years and been essentially in a KPO kind of an environment and leading it, for so many years now in your current job. But did you ever think of wanting to move to the front end or a more client-facing kind of a role rather than this is essentially outsourced services from abroad, right? Did you ever feel like wanting to go and work in London, Singapore, Hong Kong, whichever desks you have been, helping, or even move to some of the front-end banking roles here in India? Because at the end of the day, I mean, apart from the sales skills, a lot of the finance core you would anyway have, right?
I did, and I thought about it very, very seriously in the period around the time I was at Goldman, and before that, around the time I was in eValueserve. But I made a very conscious decision. This is the stage in your career by which you've matured a little and you actually think about what you want to do. So unlike earlier where it was like, सब IIT कर ले मैं कर लेता हूँ, सब IIM कर रहे हैं मैं भी कर लेता हूँ, सब नौकरी ले रहे हैं मैं भी ले लेता हूँ. This one I actually thought about a lot, and it was my view. I don't know how right or wrong it has proved to be, that India is a very overserviced market as far as investment research is concerned. I believe Reliance has something like 100, 200 analysts covering it. There is really no space to make a difference, is my view. Or if you can make a difference, it is the edge is very small. On the other hand, good people doing investment research or staying in BPO is a lot better place to be. So I very consciously chose to continue with my career in the services export business rather than build up in the finance area, because I said going back to Bombay and becoming an equity research over there, one of the 200 people who's covering Reliance, one of the 500 who's covering Unilever, isn't really going to be a very good idea.
How has your experience in corporate India changed? I'm sure you would have worked with people in various cycles, before the आप तो .com crash से शुरू किया था अपने career. Then you saw the financial crisis. Then you obviously saw the wave in the last 10 years of startups coming up. Then demonetization, and now COVID. Any observations about how corporate India has changed, given that you spend so much time in that?
It's the cycle remains largely the same. The way it works in India is that you have a bust, which is like the .com bust or the housing bust in 2007-8, or you would have right now the one coming next to COVID and so on. Nobody really knows whether this one is over. And then slowly, people start picking up, jobs start coming in more, people become a lot more serious about their, how they want to do it. So when you think about your career, it's important to keep a business cycle in mind. Where are you right now and what is the sort of development which you can have? Typically, just after busts is a good time to look for building things. So you think about starting up your company, you think about getting investments for that, because you have some time, and typically the peak of cycles is when you cash out with your businesses. You would have seen it in this cycle. There's been record IPO issuance of companies like Nykaa and Paytm and so on, which were essentially startups from about 10 years ago. So you build a startup, you sort of grow it over a period of time, and then you sell it at about 10 years later as an IPO, and that's how you play the cycle. Over a longer trend, I think what's happened is people are a lot more serious. So the MBA crowd you meet is a lot more aware, is a lot more serious about their careers. They're thinking more deliberately about what they want to do and what will make them happy. I think that's the one thing which has changed. So I think the only thing which has really deteriorated is the quality of life in cities. But that's something I think you guys would see, in front of your eyes.
अभी हमको क्या पता? पहले if it was better, there is no way we would know, whether the quality of life has deteriorated. It's only when you go abroad that you realize that there is a better way to live.
Abroad is a huge difference. I mean, you go to London and you're like, what is going on? It's like, क्या कर रखा है तुम लोग?
So when you went to Singapore for the first time, what was your experience then? Because you spoke about cities, so I want to know, because you worked in Singapore.
Yes, I worked in Singapore. I'll tell you how they work and why they are better. When you're working in Singapore, you can do something like 8 business meetings in a day. It's the same with places like Hong Kong. आप Hong Kong जाएंगे, you are let's say an investment professional and you are trying to sell a new equity product to people. In Bombay, you will be lucky to do 2 meetings in a day. Maybe बहुत खींच लोगे, आप 3 कर लोगे क्योंकि फोर्ट में 3 लोगों से मिल लिया. In places like Singapore and Hong Kong, they can do 10. Over a year, that means that guy can do about 3,500 meetings and you can do about 1,000. Now, that's a huge difference. It's impossible to cover. The productivity which these cities generate is just incredible. And that's because of the way they are built. I've seen Singapore, it's that entire Raffles area and City Hall area has big offices within walking distance. You have pretty much all global corporate global finance sitting over there. Whoever you want to meet, you can meet over there and come back. And you actually can do 7-8 meetings. In India, it's only now that we have realized कि हाँ अगर Zoom पे करेंगे तो हम दिन में 10 मीटिंग कर सकते हैं.
मैं वही बोलने वाला सर 10 मीटिंग तो अभी हमने भी करना शुरू कर दिया but only after COVID.
If you like a lot of maths, you want to build your career in accounting or finance, it's go for the big 5. Go for a Deloitte or a KPMG or an EY or PwC or one of those and build your career over there. Build your career up to the partner level. You'll find, you will you would have achieved a lot of monetary success. You would have achieved a lot of financial success. For those who are more technologically oriented, this is probably the best time to be a technologist per se. An MBA adds on top of it, but full stack developers are charging a bomb right now. You would have seen that. In our time, I realize now 25 years later into my career that all that I really had to do was to join Infosys and stay there, get the stock options, and I would have been richer than I am right now.
You must be thinking another pre-roll? Wait, let me just skip it. With all theory, there are some boring things which you can avoid, like the long wait for promotions or increments or the numerous interviews before you land your dream job. At All Tuni, we make sure that you're future ready and skilled to be in the top 0.5% class. Click on the link in the description now.